Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our discussion today. We are exploring a question that is very relevant in schools everywhere. Should students have more influence on school policies? It's a topic that often brings up strong opinions, and we hope to understand different sides of the issue. Joining us today are two guests who can offer valuable perspectives. First, we have Alex, a member of the student council at his high school, who believes students should have a greater say. And we also have Ms. Garcia, an experienced high school teacher, who will share her thoughts from an educator's point of view. Our goal is to have a thoughtful conversation and explore the benefits and challenges of increasing student involvement in shaping school rules and guidelines. We want to understand how such changes might affect the school community as a whole. So let's begin by hearing their opening thoughts on this important subject.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Good afternoon. I believe strongly that students should have more influence on school policies. After all, we are the ones who experience these policies directly every single day. School rules about things like the dress code, the amount of homework, or even the food in the cafeteria affect our daily lives significantly. When policies are made without our input, they sometimes don't work as well as they could, or they might seem unfair to us. Students see things from a different angle. We know what it's like to be a student in this school right now. This first-hand perspective is incredibly valuable. For example, if a new rule about using technology in class is introduced, students can explain how it helps or hinders their learning. We might have practical ideas about how to make that rule work better for everyone. Involving students in making these decisions is also a great way for us to learn. It teaches us about responsibility and how democratic processes work. We learn how to discuss different opinions respectfully, how to compromise, and how to find solutions to problems. These are important skills for our future lives, not just for school. Sometimes, adults might not think of the same ideas that students do. We can be very creative. For instance, if students are involved in designing rules for the school library or the student common areas, we will naturally feel more ownership of those spaces. And if we help make the rules, we are much more likely to follow them and encourage our friends to do the same. This can lead to a more positive and respectful school environment for everyone, including teachers and staff. When students feel heard and respected, they are more engaged in their education and in the school community. Giving us a stronger voice isn't about students taking over. It's about working together with teachers and administrators to make our school the best it can be. It's about creating policies that are not only effective, but also understood and supported by the people they affect most, the students. We believe this collaborative approach can lead to better decisions and a stronger school spirit.
Good afternoon, Ms. Evans. Alex. Thank you for having me. I agree that student input is valuable, and we should always encourage students to share their perspectives. Hearing from students helps us understand their experiences and concerns, which is very important. However, when it comes to making final decisions on school policies, I believe this responsibility must remain with experienced adults, the teachers and administrators. We have a broader understanding of many different factors that influence these decisions. For instance, students may not always be aware of the full complexity of certain issues. School policies often involve budget limitations. What seems like a simple request, like better sports equipment or more club funding, has financial implications that need careful management. There are also legal requirements that schools must follow, such as safety regulations or data privacy laws. These are not always simple to understand. Teachers and administrators are trained to navigate these complexities and ensure the school operates safely and legally. Another important point is that students' primary responsibility at school is to learn and focus on their studies. While participating in some decision-making can be a learning experience, too much involvement in policy-making could become a distraction from their academic work. We need to find a balance so that students can contribute without it negatively affecting their education. Teachers and administrators also bring a long-term vision for the school. We consider how policies will affect not just current students, but future students as well. We aim for consistency and fairness over time. For example, Decisions about the school curriculum or examination schedules require careful planning. These decisions must align with educational standards and ensure that all students receive a quality education. These are not simply matters of preference. They are based on pedagogical principles and strategic educational goals. While student preferences are important to consider, they cannot be the only factor. So, in conclusion, I believe in active consultation with students. Their voices should be heard through student councils, surveys, and discussions. But the ultimate authority for policymaking must rest with school leadership to ensure that policies are well-informed, balanced, and serve the best interests of the entire school community, both now and in the future. This ensures that our schools remain safe, effective, and focused on their core mission of education.
Thank you both for those clear opening statements. They lay out the different perspectives very well. Alex, Ms. Garcia raised an important point about students perhaps not always grasping the full complexity of issues like budget or legal requirements. How do you think students can meaningfully contribute to policies that involve such complexities, even if they don't have all the technical knowledge? Can students really play a role when these deeper factors are involved?
That's a very fair question, Ms. Evans, and I understand Ms. Garcia's concern. We definitely understand that some issues are complicated, and we don't expect to know everything about school budgets or specific laws. However, I believe adults, like teachers and administrators, can explain these complex parts to us in a way we can understand. If there's a budget problem, explaining why certain things aren't possible helps us see the bigger picture. Even if we don't make the final budget decision, we can still offer valuable input on the aspects that affect us directly. For example, if a new security policy is being considered because of safety regulations, students can talk about how different options might make them feel walking around school, or if a proposed procedure seems practical from our daily experience. Maybe one security measure feels too invasive, while another feels more acceptable and still achieves the safety goal. Similarly, if changes to the lunch schedule are needed due to staffing or facility constraints, students can explain how a shorter or later lunch break impacts their energy levels for afternoon classes or their ability to participate in lunchtime clubs. Our goal isn't always to have the final say or to understand every single detail of the budget, but to be heard, and for our perspectives to be seriously considered. We want our experiences to be a key part of the discussion, especially for policies that shape our school day and environment. It's about making sure the practical impact on students is not overlooked when those complex decisions are made.
Explaining complexities is indeed helpful, Alex, and I agree that student feelings and practical experiences are very important to consider. We as educators always strive to make students feel safe and comfortable at school, and your input on that is vital. However, even with clear explanations, there's a natural tendency for any group, including students, to focus on what benefits them most directly or what they desire in the short term. This might sometimes conflict with long-term educational needs or the needs of the entire school community. For example, you mentioned the lunch break. Students might overwhelmingly vote for a much longer lunch break, which sounds appealing. But a significantly longer lunch could mean reducing instructional time for core subjects, or it could create supervision challenges, or it might impact bus schedules for students who rely on them. These are the broader considerations that staff must weigh. So while we listen to the desire for a longer break, we also have to balance that with the academic mission of the school and operational realities. We need a balanced approach where student feedback is actively sought and carefully considered by staff. Then, staff, using their professional judgment and experience, make informed decisions based on a wider set of criteria, including educational outcomes, student well-being, school resources, and equity for all student groups. It's about integrating student voice into a more comprehensive decision-making framework.
Ms. Garcia, you've emphasized the need for balance and for staff to make informed decisions based on many criteria. This leads to another important aspect. Sometimes schools need to implement rules that might be unpopular with students but are considered necessary for the overall good of the school community. A question for Alex, but Ms. Garcia, perhaps you can start by explaining how student-influenced policymaking, or even just student input, can work when it comes to these less popular but essential rules? How do we ensure fairness and effective implementation in such cases?
That's a critical point, Ms. Evans. Necessary but unpopular rules are a reality in any organized community, including schools. Policies on issues like mobile phone use in classrooms, consequences for academic dishonesty, or strict attendance requirements are often established for clear educational or safety reasons, even if they aren't always liked by all students. In these situations, while students can and should be involved in discussions to understand the reasons behind such rules, the final establishment and enforcement typically need to be managed by adults. This is because staff are ultimately responsible for maintaining an orderly learning environment and ensuring that policies align with broader educational goals and legal obligations. For example, a policy restricting phone use during lesson time is there to minimize distractions and maximize learning. While students might prefer more freedom with their phones, the educational priority must take precedence. Student committees or councils can certainly offer perspectives on how such policies are communicated, or on minor aspects of their implementation, perhaps suggesting ways to make students more aware of the rationale. They might discuss the consequences and whether they feel they are applied fairly. However, the core framework of these rules, and the responsibility for ensuring they are applied consistently and fairly to everyone, needs to be upheld by those with the authority and experience to do so effectively for the benefit of the whole school. It's about ensuring that important boundaries are maintained for a productive and safe learning environment for all students, not just the ones who are most vocal.
I understand that some rules are necessary, even if they aren't what we'd choose for ourselves if we had complete freedom. Most students get that. We know that schools need rules to function properly and to make sure everyone can learn. But I believe that if we as students are involved in discussing why these rules are important and how they can be implemented in a way that feels fair and reasonable, we are much more likely to understand and support them, even if we don't love them. Take the mobile phone example Ms. Garcia mentioned. If students are just told no phones in class, some might try to break the rule. But if there's a discussion where teachers explain the problems with distractions, and students can share their views, perhaps even suggest specific times when phones could be used for learning, then we might help create guidelines that more people respect. Maybe the student council could help explain the new rules to other students, making it a peer-to-peer communication as well. We're not asking for the final say on every single rule, especially serious ones about safety or academic honesty. We understand that administrators and teachers have responsibilities there, but having a system where student councils can formally propose ideas for new policies or give structured feedback on draft policies before they are finalized by the administration would be a really good step forward. It's about having more of a say and being part of the process, not demanding the only say. It's about transparency and feeling that our perspective is valued in shaping the rules we live by every day. This involvement can actually help with the implementation of those unpopular rules, because there's greater understanding and buy-in from the student body. To sum up my position, I want to reiterate that students are the primary stakeholders in our schools. The policies created directly affect our learning, our well-being, and our overall experience during these important years of our lives. We spend a large part of our day at school, and the environment there shapes us in many ways. I strongly believe that giving students greater influence in policymaking is not just a nice idea. It's essential for creating a better school environment. When students are actively involved, they become more engaged in their education and in the school community as a whole. Policies that are developed with student input are more likely to reflect actual student needs and concerns, making them more effective and more respected. Furthermore, the process of participating in discussions, sharing ideas, and working towards solutions helps us develop crucial life skills. We learn about collaboration, critical thinking, and democratic participation, which are all vital for our futures as active citizens. We are not asking to run the schools ourselves. We are asking for a genuine partnership between students, teachers, and administrators. We want a system where student voices are not just heard, but are actively sought out, respected, and given a real, meaningful role in shaping the educational environment we all share. This will lead to a more positive, inclusive, and effective school for everyone.
Thank you. I'd like to begin my closing remarks by clearly acknowledging the value of student perspectives. As Alex has passionately argued, and as I've always believed, listening to student concerns, ideas, and experiences is incredibly important for any healthy school community. Students bring a unique and essential viewpoint, and their engagement can certainly lead to positive outcomes and a better school climate. However, I must reiterate the fundamental necessity of adult guidance, experience, and ultimate decision-making authority in the context of school policy. Teachers and administrators have professional training, a broader understanding of educational pedagogy, legal frameworks, and the operational needs of an institution. Our responsibility is to ensure that all policies are effective, fair, equitable, and consistently aligned with the school's core educational mission and long-term goals. The primary goal of a school is to educate and prepare students for their future lives. Part of this preparation involves teaching them how to contribute constructively and responsibly within established structures and systems. Therefore, I advocate strongly for clear, well-defined channels for student input, things like active student councils, suggestion boxes, regular forums, and surveys. This input should be taken very seriously and integrated into the policy review process. But it's crucial that staff, guided by their expertise and accountability, prioritize the overall educational mission, the safety and well-being of all students, and the sustainable operation of the school when final decisions are made. It's about fostering student voice within a framework of responsible adult oversight.
Thank you both, Alex and Ms. Garcia, for such a thoughtful and comprehensive discussion today. You've both presented your viewpoints with clarity and passion, and have given us a lot to consider on this complex topic. We've heard strong arguments from Alex about the importance of student voice, engagement, and the direct impact policies have on students' daily lives, suggesting that more influence leads to better, more relevant policies and valuable learning experiences. And from Ms. Garcia, we've heard compelling points about the need for experienced oversight, the complexities involved in policymaking, and the ultimate responsibility of adults to ensure policies serve broad educational goals and the entire school community effectively. It seems clear that the ideal approach involves finding a careful and dynamic balance. A balance where student voices are genuinely heard and valued, and where adult experience and responsibility guide the final decisions to create the most effective and supportive school environment. The conversation today has highlighted that this isn't necessarily an quote/or situation, but more about how we can best integrate these important perspectives. Thank you once again to our guests, and thank you to our audience for joining us.